Hey all, today we're going to start a new unit. We're going to talk more about parallel lines. We talked about parallel lines in the first unit, and we're going to talk some more about them today. So first, we're going to talk about transversals, and a transversal is just a line that intersects two or more other lines. So if we look at this picture here, I have this line that intersects both of the other two lines. So we would call this line that I highlighted in yellow a transversal. It's transversing those two other lines. It means it's intersecting them, it's crossing over them. And so when I have a transversal that intersects these lines, what ends up happening is I get these banks or these groups of four angles. So A, B, C, D there, and E, F, G, H here. And so when we have this transversal that intersects these lines and creates these banks of four angles, we create some special angle relationships. Now we do have some angle relationships already that we know about. Those are vertical angles. So for example, some vertical angles are angle A, C, angle E and G, and then we have angles B and D, angle F and H. Remember, vertical angles are congruent. We also have linear pairs, so any two angles that make a straight line. So for example, A and B, E and F, C and D, G and H. So we've seen those before, but when we have this transversal intersecting two or more lines and creating these banks of four angles, we're creating new pairs of angles that we'll talk about now. One pair are corresponding angles. So if I were able to sort of cut this into two pictures, two banks of angles. So I have that bank of four, I have that bank of four. The corresponding angles are the ones that are in the same position in those banks of angles. So A and E correspond to each other. They're sort of on the left. B and F correspond. They're on top. C and G correspond. And D and H correspond. So they're all in the same position in one bank of four angles as they are in the other bank of four angles. And again, when I say bank of four angles, I'm talking about group of four angles. My lines that are being intersected create exterior parts of the figure as well as interior parts of the figure. So the interior, when I'm talking about interior angles, I'm talking about angles that exist between the lines that are being intersected. So this space between these two lines is called my interior. Alternate means on opposite sides of the transversal. So I'm interior between the two lines. Alternate, my alternate angles, my alternate interior angles are D and F. Then the opposite side of the transversal and the opposite group of four angles. C and E are also alternate interior because they're between the two lines. They're on opposite sides of the transversal and then the opposite group of angles. So I have two pairs of alternate interior. My exterior angles are quite the opposite of interior. If D, C, F, and E were interior, then A, B, G, and H are exterior. They're outside of the two lines here. A and G are alternate exterior angles because they're on opposite sides of the transversal, and they're in opposite groups of the four angles. B and H are also alternate exterior angles. They're in opposite sides of the transversal, and they're in the opposite group of four angles. So I have two pair of those as well. Same side interior, so they're in between the two lines, and they're on the same side of the transversal, so that means D and E. They're between the two lines and on the same side of the transversal, and C and F are same side interior angles. So two pairs of angles on the same side of the transversal, in between or on the interior, the inside of these lines that are being intersected. And last, we have same side exterior, so they'll be on the same side of the transversal, like A and H, and they will be exterior angles. They'll be on the outside of the lines that are being intersected. So A and H are same side exterior, B and G are same side exterior. So we have these 5 special relationships that happen, and again, remember, we also have linear pairs and vertical angles that exist in these pictures. So the thing we're worried about today is just identifying what kind of angle pair we have, and we'll get more into it in the next lesson, but right now we just want to be able to identify them. So if I look at angle Y and X, they're both exterior, they're both outside of the 2 lines being intersected by this transversal, and on opposite sides of the transversal, so that makes them alternate exterior angles. Over here I have Y and X. One of them's exterior, one of them's interior. There's 4 angles formed here and 4 angles formed there. They're both on the upper right of those groups of 4 angles. So these are corresponding angles. They're in the same location in different groups of 4. I have another example of that right here. Y and X are corresponding. One's inside, one's outside, but they're on the bottom right of those groups of 4 angles. So this is another corresponding pair of angles. And last I have Y and X here. They're on the interior, they're between the 2 lines being intersected by this transversal, but they're on opposite or alternate sides of that transversal. That makes them alternate interior angles. So I want you to pause here. I want you to do the exact same thing we just did. Identify the relationship between angle X and Y in each of those pictures. So in this one, X and Y are both exterior angles, and they're on alternate sides of the transversal, so they're alternate exterior. Here, both my angles are interior on alternate sides of the transversal. That makes them alternate interior. Here I have one interior, one exterior. Both are in the top right. They're the top right angle in the group of 4. And so those are corresponding. They're in the same position, but in different groups of 4 angles. And last, this one might have been a little bit tricky. Y and X. That's an old pair of angle pairs we know. Those are simply vertical angles. So I don't have any link for you today, but I do have some practice for you to do. So make sure you show me your notes, come get the practice so you can practice identifying these types of angle pairs.